Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me to make a presentation about the situation of Roma people in Germany. Well, we have lots of information about the needs of Roma people here in Germany and about the consequences of those needs. First of all, I would like to speak from my experience for more than 25 years working here in Munich with Roma, Sinti-Roma families. The situation of Roma people in Germany is quite problematic and complex. And it's affecting not only Roma people in Germany, but Sinti-Roma of all of Europe. One of the main issues for us is to have access to housing, education, health. Those issues have had a positive evolution during time, but clearly today in Germany we have issues with education and housing. Education is the most fundamental issue for me. Here in Alemania, if you don't have an education, you don't have any possibility for a career or a good job. So you won't be able to support your family. Even though you are independent or you have a small business, you need education. Here in Munich, many of the families still live in a precarious conditions. I mean, they live whether in residence for homeless people or what we call emergency lodgings or in pensions. Not only for a while, but for many years. In this situation, these families are having a very hard time, and it can be even more difficult to access education. And this is not due because they don't want to access education or lack of motivation. This is due that what they are offered is not enough to access the education system. I would like now to talk about education because we are also concerned here in Munich in our advisory center for families. And I would like to mention a study which is quite relevant. It's just been published. It began in 2011 when we received an study done from Nokia. It's done in one of the states of Germany. We made a research on the situation of Sinti-Roma in Germany. In this study, 261 families were interviewed, and they asked them about different topics. We had 10 different areas, and it was very clear that there was a transversal issue for all the families in Germany, which is anti-gypsyism. In that time, we hardly can. It was difficult to find a child or a family who was not affected by this discrimination. Right now, they finished a study for 2020 and 2021. 10 years later of the previous study I just mentioned on the education situation of Roma people, also dealing with social studies. This time they reached all the nation, the 16 states of Germany, and in the study, the results made it very clear that families in Germany are in a situation which can be relevant for the European Union. Discrimination. They also studied discrimination, and it was not 261 families, but 720 families were interviewed. Out of these 720, 614 gave us results of many questionnaires they have to fill out in the 16 states of Germany. Of course, this is not statistically meaningful because we don't have a group to compare, but the results are very relevant because we could work with different people carrying out the interviews, and we had people in 100 families working for us, and they chose 5 of them at random in order to get into more details. And then with this sample of 5 families, they got very representative results. One of the things which was very clear after this research was the discrimination that every student suffers at school. 2/3 of students feel this discrimination. I think that this is quite alarming. This means that the racism against Roma people is still active and has to be considered in all spheres. The COVID pandemic has also made the situation more acute for many families. There were many families that were isolated from the school because they didn't have access to the internet or the technology. So children couldn't access remote homeschooling. So, and this means that in a way they couldn't study, they couldn't follow the standard studies. Parents, grandparents that had to work with these children were overcome in order to support their children. This situation has an impact on most of the families that we spoke with. This is quite a common situation during the pandemic. If we get into the details of this research, of this study, we find different results for 3 groups. The 3 groups are from 0 to 25 years, from 25 to 50, and over 51 years old. Those over 51 years old, around 60% of them didn't have any education and didn't finish primary school. or they had left school or never attended it. All of this, of course, is related to the fact that being a direct descendant of people in the camps in the 1940s, they were not attending school because they were afraid of reprisals, reprisals till 1945 for Sinti-Rom people here in Germany. And after 1945, things didn't change so much. It changed only in 1982 because Chancellor Schrindt and Roman Herzog, the president of the Federal Republic of Germany, they determined that the Sinti-Roma were not persecuted for preventing any crime, but the real reason was racial crimes, and then they received payments, but it was still late for these payments. Some of them who had survived the concentration camps didn't dare to take their children to school because they were afraid that the children would be taken from school and would be taken to concentration camp again. They were afraid of reprisal. And this means that those who are older than 50 years old cannot show any education. The second group, from 25 till 50 years old, those who already had some experience, had attended school sometimes, also showed a change that for the first time they left school, and it was clear. More or less 40% had only completed their primary school and studies. Only few on higher education. Some of them went to special schools, school for people with learning difficulties, and many of them didn't attend regularly school. It is shocking that the new generation, those over 25 years, under 25 years, and it is shocking that there has not been many changes. The last conclusion that we can extract from these studies regarding the different efforts made to support Sinti-Roma during the last decade, these efforts have not been enough. They are not efficient and they are not promoting higher education of Sinti-Roma in Germany. And we can get the same income and the same situation as the rest of society. For us, however, it is also important to mention that with this study, we've found that schools and within the families, we've seen that they want for students to study. We are certain that around 60% success rate in the education system when different tools had been introduced to support schools with NGOs or other institutions that were with Sinti-Rom here in Germany, and they have helped the family to have a better assistance and a better school performance. There are mediators working for them that somehow would mediate between the school and the family people who were trained to support children and families regarding education, 60% success rate. In the mid-term, they achieve 80% success rate. This means that school achievements depends on the specific and efficient support to the families, to the Sinti-Roma families. Here in Germany, when we have gone to the Ministry of Education at regional level or at national level, we are being told that in education in Germany we have enough opportunities for everyone and everyone can participate. However, we couldn't see the opportunities for those Sinti-Roma families. There was not a specific program for them. The difficulty is that many families do not participate in the standard education system. They need some encouragement. They might need some support to participate. And well, there's a lack of motivation, there's a lack of support. Well, quite often it has to do with language. It is very clear that they should be given different possibilities, including Sinti and Roma people. And they should have the possibility to create a bridge between the education system and the families, the Roma families. I think this is the only way in which we can really take advantage of all the education opportunities that there are here. But for this, we will need more mediators. For instance, in Munich, we have had a high rate of success with our school mediators. For instance, in an area where we have many Roma families living, we had seen that some kids that were included in kindergarten, and that is preschool system, when they would change to special needs education, sometimes they didn't even have tests done, just they were moved there. So, and we had a mediator, and in 1 year, just in 1 year, we took 7 children. We take them away from these special needs schools and we move them to standard schools for primary education. For children who had no issues or difficulties, standard schools. And this is due to the fact that parents may have felt safer. They felt that there was someone who was speaking with them and was speaking with the children, and the families would felt more protected, and they would feel that their children were protected, so children would attend school constantly. And just attending school was enough for them to follow the standard curriculum and to leave those special needs education centers. That means that children had a standard development, standard intelligence. Sometimes they are even above the average intelligence level. And the only thing they needed is some kind of reassurance for them and their families. And so the children can be there at the standard system. As a result of this study at federal level, they were just having a look at all the different promotions for the Roma Sinti community. This has proven that grades regarding vocational education has increased. Those who are older than 50, maybe 6 or 7%, now they are above 20%. If we compare them to the rest of the population, they are reaching 60-80%. So, as long as we recognize that this specific support is good both for children and parents, the expectations of the children and the expectations of the family in education increase whenever we have this specific support. An important question we should see is, what do we do with people over 50 years that maybe they have some legacies, some traumas, some shocks, secondary or tertiary shocks and traumas? We know that many of the direct descendants of people who suffer traumas in the past from the camps, many of them had to process those traumas. Maybe they have found some different survivalist strategies, and many of them can carry out a normal life. We also think that it is necessary here to go to the special counseling in order to process that trauma for the families of Roma people. They have to work with the story of their parents and the grandparents because there are many PST, post-traumatic stress, and it's carried out from one generation to the other. Many of the parents have learned to live somehow a standard life, and they take care of the children, but it's difficult for them to study or to have a career, and they are there just with no strength at all. I think that specialized support centers linked to the special needs and issues of Sinti-Roma population, I think that would create some links with the professional people who may attend us, and so they can know the background of the Sinti-Roma people. And I think that would give us better opportunities for better results. We still have to fight with the difficulties of people over 50 who most likely are suffering a secondary trauma because they haven't had the possibility of working, of solving those traumas. Many of them have already lost their parents and do not have the possibility to work with them. It is quite common as well among Sinti-Roma people or Roma people coming from Eastern Europe. Their social situation, their economic situation are very hard, very poor, and they might arrive to Germany, a country from the European Union. They come here, they want to look for a job, and then to send them money they earn to their families. And I think this is a great task that we have to do, and is to offer opportunities to qualified workers in order to offer them jobs. And those qualified workers can work not only in Germany but also in some other countries. We we have to work with those qualified workers, and they have to be able to go back to their countries of origin and work there. Here in Munich, I I've seen many Roma people, many Sinti-Roma that didn't have education or qualifications. Poor people, beggars, they were on the streets, and the cities didn't want them. I think this would be very different. For instance, if Romanian or Bulgarian workers can be trained. I would like to highlight that these countries that are poor, the lack of qualified workers can be an issue, even a greater issue. I had the opportunity to visit Romania on the city of Tinca. There's a Roma settlement, and I was really shocked. In Germany here, there's a project through the Vigila and Villament Foundation in order to help them, to help the people of that settlement. Think that Tinca has 8,000 population of 8,000 people, and 500 are Roma people. And the beginning of the settlement of Roma people, there's no more concrete. There's only soil. You can see that children, they can only attend private schools until primary school. And if we have only 2 of them in primary schools, the rest of them can't study. And so this is a complete disaster for the education of these children. And there are many children who are not even within the education system, and we have to integrate them in an efficient way, because that's the only way we can really make a difference. We were there visiting this settlement, and we saw that many of them do not have the chance for an education. Many of them have to be beggars, and some even have to go into prostitution. In Romania, there's a Child Protection Act, and also they are working for the human rights for children at European level. I think that we need the intervention of the European Union, so politicians are responsible within the different settlements, so Sinti-Roma population is not excluded from the educational system, but they are included. This is the end of my presentation. I'm from here, from Munich, a model city in Germany, with a counseling system at many levels that we can offer. There are many possibilities, and also we have the possibility to offer mediators to the different families so they can work with the schools and with some other agents. So I think we have achieved to establish a very wide system, an efficient system of support and cooperation with schools, and in that way make it possible an implicit support for those families. I'm asking the European Union please take into account Germany and not only countries with economical crisis. Here in Germany, we also have precarious situation for many Roma families. Urge the European Union to create support programs for people to access housing and to have their basic needs covered for the Roma Sinti population, so they have a solid foundation for their education. Thank you very much. Thank you for your great presentation. Can you hear me?
Sí, te oímos bien, Carlos.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Carlos. Well, I would like to give you some background to tell you about who is Alexander Diepold. Alexander Diepold has fought for the education of the people in Europe and Germany. And he is one of the people who knows more about the Roma administration and who's fighting for the maintenance of the Sinti-Roma people. He works very hard to fight for their rights in front of politicians and the administration. He keeps his fight that has gone beyond the media and beyond Germany. I also have one question for Alexander here or for Aldo. Can you can we ask you one question? Tania Navarro asks, hi, good morning. I think that it's unbelievable that a country like Germany, that they were a factory of death and suffering for those who shouldn't live. And I don't understand why they are still making Roma people suffer so much, Sinti-Roma people. Didn't they have to pay a debt to us? So the question, shouldn't they be paying a debt to us for all that suffering?
Sinti-Rom. Ist das eine Frage jetzt? Also die Frage heißt, ob Deutschland sich gegenüber den Sinti und Roma verantwortlich fühlt, noch was zu tun.
Si la pregunta va orientada a si Alemania todavía se sigue sintiendo
Germany feels responsible for all the damages to Roma people. Well, the thing is, why don't they feel they have a responsibility about it?
Also, es gibt eine Entwicklung.
Hay un desarrollo, una evolución en este tema.
There's been a development
regarding this topic. 1971 bis heute gehen, also jetzt 50 Jahre.
Cuando pensamos que desde finales de los años 70 a la actualidad
since the end of the 70s, we've been working on it.
Sinti, vor allem durch Bürgerrechtsbewegungen,
especially
Sinti-Roma in Germany have stated that they got civil rights.
Roma-Vereine und Sinti-Vereine.
Y especialmente los Sinti-Roma se han
agrupado en agrupaciones have joined together
propiamente
in groups, in Roma associations and organizations, and they've talked to the authorities, and also they've talked to the politicians.
Y también se han hecho, sentir su voz
they
also, político, o han manifestado su disconformidad muy claramente frente
about that they do not agree, and so they have gone to the politicians and told them, we don't agree with what you are doing. For instance, 2 years ago,
die unabhängige Antiziganismuskommission ans Innenministerium gebunden worden.
There
was a commission, an independent commission, created in the ministry, in the home office to fight against anti-Gypsyism. Last year, in August, in October,
otoño del año pasado,
in
zum ersten
autumn,
Mal ein großes Treffen gegeben.
se realizó un enorme, un encuentro bastante grande
they have
von mehr
a
als
huge meeting
30 politischen Akteuren,
con más de
with more than
30 actores políticos de diferentes niveles.
30
die
political
eine Untersuchung
stakeholders,
gemacht haben
Hicieron una investigación bastante profunda
and
zum
they
Thema Diskriminierung und
research
Rassismus gegenüber Sinti und
about
Roma.
sobre el
discrimination
tema
and
antisemitismo,
racism
discriminación
and
y
Gypsyism as well.
Racismo, antigitanismo y
Racism,
discriminación contra los
anti-Gypsyism,
Sinti y Roma.
and Sinti-Roma
Jetzt werden diese
discrimination.
ganzen Ergebnisse
Con todos esos
veröffentlicht
resultados ahora en la
With
mano,
all
und
those
es sollen
actions,
aus diesen Ergebnissen dann neue Modelle entstehen.
con esa información es posible
with that
empezar a presentar
information,
entonces
it is
otros
possible
modelos
then
de
to
lo que
begin
está
to work
sucediendo,
with
otros modelos
some
de la
different
realidad que está
models
pasando en
of,
Alemania,
of reality.
Strukturelle Diskriminierung zu bekämpfen.
y pelear especialmente contra la
And
discriminación
then we can
estructural
fight
todavía
against
existente.
structural
Das ist eine
discrimination that we
der
still
großen
have.
Errungenschaften, die jetzt neu sind.
Uno de los caminos más fuertes que se están
One of the
viendo ahora después de muchos
main
años.
roots that
aber immer
we
mehr
have after many years of fight.
También se está viendo que muchas más organizaciones
We also can see
die
how
anfangen mit,
many more
mit Ergebnissen, mit
organizations,
Untersuchungen, mit Tests, mit Interviews.
estas organizaciones han trabajado fuertemente en
many
nuevas
organizations who
investigaciones,
are
en
working
nuevas
very hard in new studies,
formas
new
de
research,
captar la realidad de los Sinti-Roma en Alemania,
new
auf die
ways
bestehende
of
Ungleichbehandlung
capturing the reality of
para ir
Sinti-Roma in
confirmando cuál
Germany,
es
so we can
no solo la
confirm
discriminación, sino que
not only
la falta de igualdad
discrimination, but
frente a la
also
población
the
general.
lack of
und die
equality with the
fehlende
standard population
gleichberechtigte Teilhabe anzugehen.
Y la falta de
and
acceso
the
igualitario
lack of
a todos los campos que
egalitarian
son importantes
access
para las
to
personas
all the
en un país.
relevant areas for the
Das heißt, wir
livelihood
haben
of
in
people in a
Deutschland mehr
country.
als 100 Organisationen,
En Alemania
In Germany,
tenemos más de 100
we
organizaciones
have more than
Roma.
100
wir haben den
Roma
Zentralrat mit den Landesverbänden,
organizations.
Tenemos en la cúspide el Consejo Central de los
We
Roma
also
alemanes
have
y
a
tenemos
central council for Roma people,
Estados federados también
and we also
organizaciones.
have in the
und die
different
Bundesländer gehen
regions
dazu über,
several
vom Staat
organizations.
Staatsverträge einzufordern für das jeweilige Land innerhalb von Deutschland, also Bayern oder Baden-Württemberg.
Y se están estableciendo
And
convenios o pactos
we have
sociales entre
covenants
los
and social
estados
pacts among
federados, por el momento
the
Baden-Württemberg, que está muy
federal
ligado a
regions.
Baviera, y
Right
Baviera
now,
mismo han
Baden-Württemberg
suscrito
and Baviera
pactos sociales con el pueblo Roma aquí en
have
Alemania.
already
In
signed
diesen
social pacts
Staatsverträgen ist
with the
festgelegt,
Roma people here
En
in
estos
Germany.
contratos o pactos sociales
In these
se ha establecido
agreements,
dass
social
Bildung das höchste
agreements,
Gut
which
ist
has
und
been
dafür
signed,
einzutreten ist.
que el punto principal de
it's
trabajo
stated
conjunto
that the
es la
main item
educación
is going to
del
be
pueblo Roma,
education
Im
for Roma
Zugang zur
people,
Bildung wird nicht unterschieden zwischen Sinti und Roma.
y especialmente dejar claro que el acceso a la
especially to make it
educación no
clear
puede ser
that
un punto de
access
discriminación o un
to
punto
education
de
cannot be
no puede ser un
a
problema
discrimination
el
area or
acceso a la
an
educación
issue.
para ningún niño ni
So
persona de
every
nuestro pueblo.
Sinti-Roma
Die
person has to have
Landesverbände
access
sind
to
innerhalb dieser
education.
Staatsverträge auch verpflichtet,
Las organizaciones que son las
The
organizaciones por Estado
organizations
federado también están obligadas por
of
su
the
parte
different
gegen jede Form von Diskriminierung gegenüber
regions
der Volksgruppe der Sinti und Roma anzugehen und anzukämpfen.
de hacerse partícipe en cada una de las
have to
situaciones donde se
participate
constate que hay
and to see
discriminación o
and to
hay
intervene in any
vulneración de
situation
los
in which
derechos de
we
acceso a
can
la
see
educación en cualquiera de otros de los campos que son
discrimination
importantes para
or
la
the
vida de
breach
nuestro
of the
pueblo en
right
Alemania.
to education.
Das heißt, diese Staat, ja?
Sí, adelante. Continúe.
Yes, you may proceed.
Also mit diesen Staatsverträgen hat man zum ersten Mal auch eine gesetzliche Handhabe gegen strukturelle Diskriminierung vorzugehen.
Estos contratos o pactos sociales
These
con los
agreements, the
estados federados han sido
social
uno de los puntos más
agreements with
fuertes
the
para
regions
establecer
are
los
going to
derechos
highlight
y la
the
garantía
most
de derechos
important
constitucionales
issues, and
que
they are going
tiene
to establish the
cada
constitutional
habitante
rights
de nuestro
of
pueblo aquí en
every
Alemania.
single citizen in
Es
Germany.
wird jetzt in den nächsten Monaten diskutiert, wie das Gleichberechtigungsgesetz umgesetzt wird.
En los próximos meses
We're
estamos
going
por
to
discutir también en cada
discuss
uno de los
in
estados
the next
la
months in the
igualdad
different
de
regions
derechos
uh,
en estos temas
the right
con
to
las autoridades.
equality, and we're going to talk to the
Gleichberechtigung umfasst
authorities
natürlich
about
mehr, nicht
this.
nur wie Menschen als gleichberechtigte Bürger und in der Gesellschaft gesehen werden, sondern eben auch als, dass beispielsweise soziale Probleme nicht ethnisiert werden.
No solo la igualdad de
Not
derechos
only
generales que se establecen para cualquier
equality
ciudadano de
and
un
same
país,
rights
sino,
for
por
everyone, for
ejemplo,
every citizen,
el
but
acceso a
also
viviendas dignas,
access
por
to
decir, por
fair
mencionar un ejemplo
housing.
concreto.
That would
Dass
be
niemand
a
aufgrund seiner Abstammung benachteiligt werden darf.
specific example.
Que nadie puede impedir
So
el acceso a cualquier tipo de beneficio,
nobody
negarle
can
o entorpecerle el
deny
ingreso o la
any
obtención de beneficios
right, for instance,
por
to get
motivo de
benefits
su origen, cualquiera que sea.
or any kind of
Und
discrimination
es soll
due to
sozusagen
origin.
über die Ergebnisse ermittelt werden, was es noch braucht, um das Gleichstellungsgesetz tatsächlich effizient zu machen.
Y todo esto, voy a intentar traducirlo bien,
Um,
pero la idea es que puedan
The
constituir
idea
elementos
is,
claves
so
para
these are going to be
trabajar
key
políticas mucho más
elements
concretas y
to
mucho más
work
generales
with
orientadas al
in
pueblo romano.
specific
Carlos,
policies for the Roma people.
Hay más preguntas en el panel y
We
sí que
have some more
rogaría un poquito más
questions.
de concrecidad, ¿sabes? Para que
May
tuviésemos,
I ask you to be
para
brief?
que fuese más dinámico. Josué Navarro
So,
da la enhorabuena
José
por la
Navarro
presentación y sobre
says,
todo por la
congratulations
magnífica
for
labor que
your
estáis realizando en
presentation,
Múnich.
for the great work
La
you are
pregunta de
carrying out
Josué
in Munich.
Navarro es,
My question
¿puede
is,
decirnos cuál es el
can you
porcentaje
tell
de
us
niños
which
escolarizados
is the
y cuál de
percentage
niños que
of
finalizan los estudios
children going
básicos?
to
Gracias.
school and the percentage of children finishing primary school?
Wir können für München
Es
und
gibt, und über die Studie natürlich,
wie viel sind in der Schulsystem und wie viele Kinder letztendlich beenden das Schulsystem oder Schulabschluss.
ja, es gibt eine Studie, eine Bundesstudie.
Hay un estudio actual, el que ya mencioné
So
anteriormente,
the study I
dice
mentioned
Alexander,
before
sobre el tema educacional,
about
die
education,
2021 jetzt im März veröffentlicht worden ist.
que fue inaugurado, como ustedes escucharon,
as
el año
I
2020
mentioned,
y
it was
principio de
done in
2021.
2020,
Die auf Bundesebene
2021, beginning of
insgesamt 720
2021.
Familien befragt hat.
Y como escucharon, la muestra de familias
And
fue
there
de
was
más de
a
700.
sample of families,
Und
more
aus
than
dieser Studie,
700
aus
families.
dieser Studie sind folgende Ergebnisse.
Y en ese estudio, pass mal auf mit der Wiederholung, weil die haben schon den Video gesehen.
Achso.
Also
Aber es
vielleicht
ging
konkret, wie
Frage.
viele Kinder in der Schulsituation sind, wie viele Kinder
Es sind mittlerweile
solamente estaba pidiéndole a Alexander puntualizar sobre la pregunta que hizo Raúl.
Well, we just wanted to get the percentage.
No,
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Mittlerweile, also bei allen Befragungen, es gab 95% aller Kinder sind in den Schulen.
En la encuesta realizada a todas estas más de 700 familias,
So,
más del
and this
95% de los
survey,
niños
then
están en el sistema escolar.
more than
Aus dieser Studie, ja.
59%
Sobre ese estudio, por supuesto.
of
¿Y cuál de los niños ha
children
finalizado
are
los
there.
estudios básicos?
How many did
Schulabschluss?
finish the
Und bei
basic
den Schulabschlüssen
studies?
ist zu unterscheiden.
Ahí se diferencian en el término de sus estudios.
Wir haben festgestellt, dass
There are
sowohl
some
zwischen den
differences.
bis 25-Jährigen und von den 25 bis 50-Jährigen etwa 50% Bildungsabschlüsse vorhanden sind.
En la población entre los
So,
25 y los 50 años se
between
pudo
25 to
constatar
50
que
years,
habían terminado sus estudios escolares.
Aber nur etwa
Alrededor del, perdón, ahí parece que se me fue, alrededor del 50% habían terminado sus
so
estudios
around
escolares.
50% of people between 25 and 50 years had finished already basic
De
education.
la población entre 25 y
50%
50 años
of the population
habían
between
terminado sus
25
estudios
and
escolares.
50 had
das
finished
nochmal
the
genauer
basic
untersucht.
studies.
Y eso se volvió a investigar en profundidad.
Und dabei
And they
festgestellt,
then
dass es
repeated
abhängt von der
the
Erwartung der Eltern.
survey and they
Y
got
que
into
eso
detail
depende
about
mucho de
this.
las
And they say it depends
expectativas que tengan los
on the
padres sobre
expectation
esa
of
finalización de estudios. Es muy
parents
importante ese
on
punto, las expectativas.
children finishing
Und von der
school. So
Erwartung der Schule
expectations and support of the
Y las
parents are
expectativas que tiene
crucial
el
for
colegio
this.
o el sistema
And also
educacional
expectations
de los
of the
alumnos,
school
si
and
quieren,
of
si
the
van a terminar o
educational
no sus
system.
estudios escolares.
If they think that they are going
Das
to
heißt, da hatten
finish
wir etwa
their
40%,
studies,
wenn das von beiden kam.
Ahí bajamos a un 40%.
then there is only
Und wenn
40%
aber noch
here in this situation.
eine Einrichtung, also eine explizite Unterstützung, etwa durch Mediatoren oder durch Bildungscoaches oder durch eine Einrichtung, die Nachhilfe gibt und so weiter, wenn eine Institution mit eingebunden war, waren wir bei 80%.
Y como ustedes pudieron escuchar en
And
mi
as you
presentación, cuando se ha
could
incorporado
see my
mediadores
presentation,
Roma, cuando se ha incorporado
the minute
instituciones
they
especializadas
were
en
using
el apoyo escolar
mediators,
o
Roma
instituciones
mediators, as
que ha
support
puesto
for
la
children at
ciudad
school,
para apoyar a la población Roma
those
en sus estudios escolares,
mediators,
podemos tener alrededor del
then
80%
we
de
increased
finalización de
this
estudios,
figure up till
solamente con ese
80%
apoyo.
just with the
Sí, bueno,
mediators, the
ahora
support of
Raúl
mediators.
Maya quiere hacer
Okay,
una
now
pregunta, creo
Raúl
que esto va más
Maya
enfocado
wants to
hacia ti,
ask
Aldo.
a
Dice,
question.
buenas, quisiera preguntar
He
a Aldo
says,
hasta qué
good morning,
punto
I would like to ask Aldo,
hasta qué punto puede ser
how
transmitida esa experiencia de los
you
campos de
convey the
concentración a las
experience
generaciones futuras. ¿Se
of
puede llegar a
the
transmitir los
camps
mismos
to the
estigmas sufridos
future
por la propia persona a
generations?
otras?
Can you convey the same suffering from one generation to the other?
Bueno, los estudios sobre traumas transgeneracionales se siguen
Well,
haciendo.
there
La
are studies on
población,
transgenerational
los
trauma.
supervivientes y sus familias después de la Segunda Guerra
Survivors
Mundial, por ejemplo,
of the Second
solamente
World War,
en
for
ese punto,
instance. There are many studies
siguen
about
estableciendo
this,
que hay un vínculo
and they
directo
established
entre
that there is
los
a
traumas
direct
sufridos en los
link
campos de concentración y la guerra
between the
sobre los
traumas
supervivientes
in
de
the
las próximas
camps
generaciones.
by
Y eso
survivors
ellos lo
and the
tienen
next generations.
muy bien documentado. Hay varios
There
estudios,
are
algo
many
conversamos
studies,
el
there
año
are lots of
2018 por ahí,
papers about
en
this.
una
There's one
presentación
which
en
began
Valencia,
in
en la
20,
universidad.
there was a presentation in Valencia
Sí,
at
es
the university
posible
in
en el campo
2018.
del pueblo gitano
It is
alemán ha sido
possible
mucho más difícil porque
for
no
Roma,
tenemos
it is,
el apoyo de
although
las
it is possible, it
autoridades
is
y no
difficult
hemos
for to have
conformado
a
el
specific
conjunto de
to
profesionales
have a
para
specific data for
verificar con
Roma
estudios
people
esta situación.
because
Lo
there
vemos
are
sí
not
todos
many
los días
studies for
en
Roma people.
nuestro centro de
But
asesoría
yes,
familiar,
we
donde los
have
niños
a
expresan distintos
family counseling
síntomas
center, and we can
que
see
no
those
corresponden a sus
symptoms of
vivencias directas,
children
sino que
that
son
do not
síntomas propios
correspond
de
to
traumas que
their
han sido transmitidos por
experiences,
sus padres o
but
sus
these
abuelos
are
y que se
due to
manifiestan
trauma,
esencialmente en
to traumas
angustia,
that
en
had
miedos,
been
en
inherited
muchos
from their
síntomas psicosomáticos
grandparents,
al momento, por ejemplo, en
many
los niños escolares
psychosomatic
para ir al colegio.
symptoms. For
Muchos colegios nos
instance, when
preguntan
children have to
si,
attend
por qué
school,
las
and
familias
many teachers
Sinti-Roma
ask
no
us
envían a sus niños al
why
colegio.
Sinti-Roma are
Son
not
muchos
sending their
los niños
children
que
to
tienen
school.
terror
many children are really in fear to go to school because for many of them after the Second World War, when they were attending school, they were being taken to the camps or to retention camps. So even after the Second World War, up till 1975, we have been living this situation. So I would like to have a group of panelists of our experts. I work on this here in Germany. I would like to know some other people who are studying this as well here in Germany in order to create an research group. If any European people or any people from Latin America is interested in this, I would be delighted to create a group, a research group. Excuse me, we don't have much time. So I'm afraid even though we have more questions, we don't have much more time because we have some other panelists. So Alexander, just one question. We witnessed, Bere was there, we were with you in Munich some years ago, where in the first time the authorities were recognizing the suffering of the Sinti-Rom people. Since that public recognition up till now, have you seen a change in the attitude of the authorities and a change in the support by the authorities? Have you seen that?
Also diese Entschuldigung, die 2018 von dem Polizeipräsidenten André an die gesamte Gemeinde gebracht worden ist, war eine wichtige und symbolische Kraft.
Esas disculpas oficiales públicas que hizo el año 2018 el presidente
public apologies by the president of the Munich region, Mr. André,
sin duda fue un hecho tremendamente significativo.
Even though they were really meaningful,
die Umarmung von dem Präsidenten André, des Zeitzeugen Peter Höllreiner,
y el abrazo que le dio
and the hug, president, the director of the police of Munich, of the director of the police of Munich, hug Peter there in the act, and it was amazing for all of us who were participating there about the expression of the apology with a hug. I mean, it was amazing for us.
Peter
Holmreiner,
durante sus últimos 50 años, casi toda su vida,
he was persecuted by police during his whole life.
Der Polizei nimmt den Bereich Rassismus gesondert auf.
A partir de ese momento,
From that moment on, police training changed in Munich, and they began to do some training on racism, discrimination, and so on.